Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the first meeting of the 2021 AALS annual meeting. My name is Jason Palmer, and I am the Leroy Highbaugh Senior Research Chair and Professor of Law at Stetson University College of Law. I will serve as moderator for today's AALS Arc of Career panel, a session for first-time meeting attendees. What is AALS and why does it matter for my career? And how do I get the most out of the annual meeting? We are very excited for this session as we have, I believe, over 300 attendees currently registered for this presentation. So thank you all very much for being with us this morning. Let me take a minute to briefly discuss today's format, introduce our panelists, and then we'll begin. The panelists will engage in a discussion regarding a series of questions that I'll present to them. We also welcome questions from our attendees. So please place your question in the chat box that I'll be monitoring. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the panelist remarks, and I will do my best to get your questions before the panelists at that time. So let me now please introduce our panelists. And if the panelists may want to give a little wave as I introduce you so everyone can see who you are. First, we have the Executive Director of AALS and former Dean of Georgetown University Law Center, Judy Areen. Next, we have the incoming President of AALS and Dean of Boston College Law School, Vincent Rogeau. Our third panelist is President-elect of the AALS and Dean of the University of California, Berkeley School of Law, Erwin Chemerinsky. And our final panelist is the chair of the new law professors section, and is currently a professor at Northern Illinois University College of Law, but will be joining the faculty at Tulane Law School in the fall of 2021, Maybelle Romero. Good morning, panelists, and thank you all for being with us this morning. I would now like to turn the microphone over to Judy Areen, who will have a few words about joining sections and networking opportunities at this virtual annual meeting.
Thank you, Jason, and let me extend a warm welcome to everyone who is here for the session and at the meeting. We are delighted you're here. Last January, for a point of comparison, our in-person meeting was here in Washington, D.C., where I am, and we had just over 2,000 people in attendance at the meeting. I checked, and as of 10 minutes ago, more than 4,684 faculty and administrators have registered for this year's meeting, so a little more than double last year. In a way, everyone should probably be at this session because, in a way, all of us are first-time attendees, at least at a virtual meeting. So I want to say in advance, we've done everything we can to make this a good experience for all of you. But if there's occasional glitches or kids wandering across the screen or cats or dogs or various things, I hope you'll understand in the spirit of things. This session is actually only 6 years old. Jason and I, before we started, were recalling our first meeting, and you were just sort of dropped in to this large crowd, and it seemed as if everybody else knew everyone else and where to go, and it was a little daunting. So it was decided about 6 years ago, let's have a session and invite people who've been part of AALS to talk a little about their first meeting as a way to give you some tips for making the meeting better work for you. I also want to take a word out, this should be familiar from television, to thank our sponsor. In this case, it's West Publishing. They publish both under the imprint of West and Foundation Press. There's no exhibit hall this year, but you'll find on the list in the virtual lobby, you can click on the sponsors, and several publishers are sponsors, and so you can click on West and arrange and talk to somebody on their staff if you would like to do that. Most of the programs during this meeting are put on by one of our 103 sections. And in fact, there's 3 different types of sections. If you haven't already looked at them, you can easily find them by just going to the AALS website, AALS.org, and they list the 3 different kinds. First, and most of them are academic sections, ranging from administrative law to tort law. The second largest group are administrative sections. There's one for associate dean and one for institutional advancement, which is designed to connect both people who work on alumni relations, on communications, or in development. And the third type of section are so-called affinity groups. There's one for women in legal education, another for minority faculty, and so on. We recommend that you attend sessions put on by sections in the subjects in which you teach or are doing scholarship. I can still remember my first annual meeting. It was 1973. It was New York. I was scheduled to teach family law, but hadn't settled on the best casebook. That year, the family law section put on a panel that included authors of the most widely used casebooks. Anyway, it was wonderful to hear from each of them and their explanations of what they hope to accomplish in their casebooks, and it really helped me make that choice. That first session also established for me some professional friendships that have lasted ever since. As one friend put it, you should be fearless. Introduce yourselves to panelists after a session. You can do that virtually at this meeting by using the chat function on the meeting platform. Your goal should be to be on their radar screen. So in the future, you might send a draft paper for their comments and suggestions. We strongly encourage you to join at least one section and maybe more. It's easy to do. Just go to the website, indicate which sections you would like to join. They not only put on programs at our annual meeting every year, an increasing number are connecting with members throughout the year. Some have set up mentoring opportunities for new faculty. Others have been offering webinars on topics of special interest to that section. But I want to assure you that you can attend any session at this meeting. You don't have to be a member of the section to go to a section program. Many of us indeed have had the experience of learning a new way of approaching teaching a subject or something in our scholarship that we learned from a session put on a section that was not our field at all. So explore. It's obviously more difficult to meet people in your field at a virtual meeting, but we've tried to use technology to support that kind of professional and personal networking. You can look at the list of attendees once you go to that virtual lobby, and you can reach out, just click on the chat button, and you have the option of making it a video chat with anyone who's at the meeting. Some sections are holding networking sessions for members of their section. Finally, we're using something called REMO, R-E-M-O. If you don't know about it, look it up on Google or use YouTube. You can get to it in this meeting by clicking on the coffee card in the virtual lobby. And when you do, we've set up times in the morning and afternoon of each day and a reception at the end. And we've done that so there'll be a larger number of people. Once you get inside the remote platform, it's sort of like going to a big ballroom with more than 20 tables of 4 to 6 people. When you first go in, you're automatically put at a table, and you'll be able to see and meet everyone at the table as if you were in a Zoom breakout room. But at the same time, you're talking to people at your table, you can run your cursor over the other tables and see who's there. And I might say, oh my goodness, there's Maybell over there. Excuse myself, double click and go over and be at the table or the Zoom breakout room with Maybell. So it really is like being at a virtual cocktail party. And it's a chance, therefore, to see old friends, but also to meet some new ones. Our goal in setting this up is to recognize that social and professional connections are one of the goals of this meeting. It's a way of exposing you to ideas and approaches you can use in your own teaching and scholarship. So welcome to the 2021 annual meeting. May you find it interesting, stimulating, and maybe even fun. Jason, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Judy. Thank you for all that information. I hope I encourage all of our attendees to take advantage of as many of the opportunities as they can, as Judy set forth. So let's turn right to our panelists. And let me ask them the first question. What do you wish you had known as a new professor at your first AALS meeting? What would you have wanted to know if this panel had existed when you attended your first meeting? And why don't I start off with Erwin?
Thank you. I too want to welcome everyone to the first AALS conference. I attended my first conference about 40 years ago in Cincinnati. I remember getting there and not knowing anyone other than a few members from my faculty who were there and really feeling out of place. So there's a lot of things that I wish I had known then that I know now. One is I wish I had realized sooner the benefits and enjoyment of attending sessions outside of my field. For many years in going to AALS, I would immediately look and see where's the con law section, where's the federal court section, and not pay that much attention to the rest of the program. But in more recent years, I read through the program. It is such an incredibly rich set of sessions, and inevitably I find 2 or 3 outside my field that I just want to go hear, and often the things I learn the most from. Second, I wish I had used the opportunity more to get to know the scholars and teachers in my own field. I'm by nature very shy. Introducing myself to people I don't know is not something I'm comfortable doing. But in hindsight, I wish I had done it more. I've really enjoyed when I've been at AALS when scholars in my field, often junior scholars, come up to me, they introduce themselves. We sometimes have a conversation about something I've written or they've written. It often turns into conversation over email. They're sending me drafts of their work in the future. I know it's much harder over Zoom and over the electronic platform to do this, but Judy outlined many ways in which it's possible, as well as just the simple way of looking at somebody's email address and saying, I enjoyed hearing you, or I enjoyed this article, starting a conversation, sharing scholarship and drafts and the like. Third, I wish I had realized sooner that the benefits of the AALS in professional and social contacts are as important as any programs I attend. My experience over the years is that the quality of the programs at AALS varies greatly. Some are breathtakingly good, some are more disappointing. It's inevitable there'll be that kind of variation when there's over 200 sessions going on at a conference. And so there's some years where I leave the AALS inspired by the programs. Some I'm more disappointed by the programs I attended. But I've come to realize that the social and the professional interactions are as important as any sessions that I go to. Inevitably, when I see people, there's the joy of seeing old friends or colleagues, but most often those then turn into substantive conversations, sitting in the lobby and talking about some cutting edge issue in the field. And so I know, again, it's harder to do this over Zoom, but there are all of the mechanisms that have been created by AALS, and to take advantage of them to have those social and professional interactions. Fourth and finally, I wish I had known sooner what an important and even terrific organization AALS is and how crucial it is for the legal academy. I've attended AALS conferences over the course of my career. I've gone to the AALS hiring conference. I participated in some of their mid-year conferences, but really didn't have much sense of what the AALS was or what it did. A number of years ago, when I was the founding dean at UC Irvine, we had to go through getting AALS accreditation. And as a result of that, I learned a lot more about AALS and the organization. That led to greater involvement. It is both a membership organization and a learned society. It's also the voice for legal education, generally, as well as in the academy. It represents the whole range of law schools that exist, range in any way you would want to define that. And I wish I had gotten involved in it earlier in my career. So those are just some of the things I wish I had known 40 years ago when I started going to AALS.
Thank you. And now if I can ask the same question to Vince.
Sure, thanks, Jason. And again, just to echo the welcomes you've already heard, welcome to the annual meeting, our first virtual annual meeting. And in a way, I don't have a whole lot add, I mean, many of the things I would offer are similar to what's already been said, but maybe I'll sort of build on a couple of them in a more general way. So I think my first meeting was in the early 1990s in Washington. So it's been quite a long time that I've been going to these annual meetings, and I think they've changed quite a bit over those years. So in a way, what I wish I had known then may not have been as useful to me at the time, but certainly I think would be useful to you now, because I think the meetings offer a lot more now than they did then. But I do think for me, the biggest thing that I've learned and that I wish I had known is that the Legal Academy really is a community of scholars and teachers and staff and other professionals across a wide range of schools and places. And but you don't realize, I think, when you start off, and that your school is really an integrated part of that community. It seems like your school is sort of the center of the universe. At least that's how I felt. And and maybe the city I was in, maybe I tepidly would reach out to other people locally. But the AALS annual meeting is actually a chance to engage across the entire universe of the Legal Academy in all the ways that have been described. And it really is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to deepen relationships, to expand your horizons, to understand in all the different ways that you might, the role that you play on your own faculty. So be it as a teacher, in the way that Judy said, in terms of finding out about things in your own discipline that can make you a better teacher, help you find better materials, that can connect you in better ways to other people who teach in that subject, be it as a scholar, by attending those sections in the areas in which you do scholarly research, and deepening relationships there. So first, as I said, it was the community. And then I think second for me, it would be developing those relationships with other people who write in the fields in which I write. And I didn't realize at the time that those people were anxious to meet new people, and saw this meeting as the opportunity to do that, and really were hoping that the junior folks, in my case at the time, would come in and say hello and get to know them. So you do have to be a little bit fearless, and sort of put yourself out there, and you should feel that there's a welcome being waiting for you, because those of us now who are a little grayer at the temples are happy to hear from you and to know that you're interested in the subjects that they're interested in. And I think most of us are really very much invested in seeing what the new people in our fields are interested in, talking to them about the work that we've done and the work that they're doing, and pushing into new areas in the field, by meeting new people. So I guess what I would accentuate as the second part of my remarks is to say, this is an opportunity to meet and engage in a social way. And obviously, it's harder in this virtual context, but that's really a critical part of why we have an annual meeting. Yes, the scholarly sections are incredibly important. Yes, learning more about our teaching is incredibly important, but relationships are incredibly important. And, this is a time to really build those relationships. And as Judy has said, and as Erwin has said, I have built relationships over almost 30 years that I still maintain because of this annual meeting, knowing that every year I'll be able to go back and reconnect with those people in person. And increasingly now, because of technology, it's a lot easier for us to stay in touch during the year. So those would be my offerings on that point.
Great, thank you very much. Babel or Judy, did you want to chime in with anything on that point, or if not, I'll move to the next question. You guys are muted.
I think they've covered everything that needs to be covered, so thanks.
Good. Okay.
Me too. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. All right. So let me move on to the next question then, and I will ask how, now that we've talked a little bit about what you wish you had known as a new professor, and now that we're into the meeting itself, how would you suggest that someone get involved in section leadership. And maybe I'll start with you since you are the chair of the new law professor section.
Well, thank you so much, Jason, for moderating this panel. I wanted to offer a warm welcome to everyone who's coming to this meeting for the first time ever from the new law professor section. I know that the entire board is really excited to have you here, and we're hoping that you'll join us for our panel on Friday as well. So I recall my first double ALS. This was 4 years ago in New York. And I came into academia after 10 years in practice. So I wasn't really familiar with sort of the embedded hierarchies or that I should be intimidated by people or anything like that. So I went to my first meeting really excited about doing this. I was a VAP at BYU, and I just ran up to people and introduced myself. Hi, I'm Maybell. Hi, I'm Maybell. I've never been to one of these. I have no idea what I'm doing. And that was actually really helpful. I think people were a little bit surprised, but it was incredibly helpful. I recall the first person that I introduced myself to, Janet Moore at Cincinnati, was like, "Oh, you don't know anyone here. Let me introduce you around." And one of the things that she suggested to me was to go to the new law professor section. And I showed up, stuck around for the business meeting. I was still a VAP. And they were looking for people to join section leadership and join the executive board. And I looked around, I was like, well, no one else is volunteering for this, so I'll do it, sure. And there I started. And 4 years later, now I'm the chair of the new law professor section. So sometimes, if you just make yourself available, if you put yourself out there, if you show interest, everyone has a lot of work to do on these sections. And they are more than happy to have folks who are really enthusiastic and really wanting to participate and really wanting to help out to build these sections. So, these sorts of executive boards, they're not supposed to be clubby, they're not exclusive, they're there to serve you. So reach out to the chair of whatever section you're interested in, introduce yourself, get to know them, show up to the business meetings and start getting involved, chip in your ideas, talk about things that you'd like to see as improvements in future. These are supposed to be really open, inclusive sorts of environments. And I found that they really have been. And don't be intimidated, I guess, is what I'd tell everyone. I know that we keep hearing this, but perhaps it helps to hear it from still a relatively junior law professor. In that I have found everyone in section leadership, in the AALS, my senior colleagues, incredibly welcoming, incredibly encouraging, and more than happy to welcome you into the ranks of leadership, especially if it means that they're going to get help from someone who might bring in fresh ideas and fresh perspectives. So I think the theme that we're starting to get in this session in particular is don't be afraid, don't fear anything, just throw yourself in there. We've all been in this sort of new AALS attendee, new law professor sort of mode at one point. So anyone that you're speaking to at this meeting, just know that they've been there. They know what it's like. They will empathize with you. So, use that as sort of a point of connection, and don't be intimidated by anyone you see out there. Seriously, they are all happy to see you. They're all happy to work with you. So please, if you're interested in even joining, new law professor section leadership, reach out to me. Reach out to our chair-elect. He will be the chair in a few days. In the rest of our leadership as well, and we'll be happy to talk with you and try to get you involved. New law professors is really here to serve you. So please reach out to us with any concerns, questions, ideas, ways that you want to get involved. Just let us know, and I think you really can do that with any other section that you're interested in. People are happy to chat with you.
Great, thank you, Maybell. Yeah, and let me just echo that about the business meeting. Attending those are really a nice way to kind of see what's happening, and you kind of get naturally drawn in. That's how I wound up getting involved in some of the sections I'm involved in. Just kind of it evolves naturally. But let me ask the same question to Erwin. You had mentioned that you tend to be a little bit on the shyer side, so maybe some of those people who aren't as outgoing as Maybell or as energetic to run up to people. What would be some of your advice to them about how to get involved?
I so agree with everything Maybell said. I'm tempted to say yes. My answer to your question will sound like a tautology. The best way to get involved is to get involved. Go to the section meetings of the area of law that you're most interested in, that you teach and write about. Be sure and stay afterwards for the business meetings. Usually it's not a large crowd of people who stay for the business meetings, so there's the opportunity to get involved. If there's a section listserv, and some do and some don't, participate in the section listserv. Let the leadership of the section know that you're interested in being involved. Just what Maybelle was saying for her section, but it's true for all of the sections of AALS. I just conclude by emphasizing what I've seen is the benefits of getting involved. I was in the section leadership in areas that I was interested in relatively early in my career. You don't need to wait until later in your career in order to do this. And it's a wonderful way to get to know people and to get involved. Also, it really does give you the chance to shape the programs for the years to come. And this is your opportunity to be part of determining what's going to be covered with regard to teaching and scholarship in your field, in your section.
Thank you. Judy, do you have anything to add?
No, Erwin covered it.
Excellent. Thank you. Vince? Good. All right. Well, thank you. So that naturally leads me to the next question. We've been talking about section leadership, but I'm sure that we have some of our attendees who are thinking, well, I'm not really want to be a section leader, or I'm not really interested in leadership roles. So what opportunities are available to me at AALS? What opportunities might I take advantage of? And I'd also like to address maybe what opportunities are available to me as senior staff or as administrators and in AALS. And I'll start with you, Judy.
Good. Well, I mentioned earlier and want to underscore again, we have our institutional advancement section. And it really brings together three different aspects of this important life of a law school. So it's people who do alumni relations, it's people who do development, and it's people who do communications. Better not forget communications. And the first thing I would say as I think back on my 15 years as dean of a law school is how important those three areas are to how effectively a law school functions. Because to stay connected with your own alumni and to communicate about yourself clearly and candidly with future students to potential applicants is just critical to being able to accomplish your larger mission, which is of being a law school that will prepare the next generation of lawyers and leaders around the country. And yet I have to say, sometimes, I don't know if Erwin and Vince have experienced this, faculty tend to feel they're really the only people who count at a law school. Now, don't get me wrong, faculty are the heart and center of a law school. A law school is about the faculty and the teaching that goes on. But the people in those other professional roles are just as vital to what the law school can accomplish. So we haven't always been as good as we should be about making sure those people feel included and part of the annual meeting. And so I'm especially delighted to see from the numbers that we have more people attending who come in one of those areas of institutional advancement. And I'm delighted, as you look through the program, you will see there are lots of sessions sponsored by institutional advancement, though you should by no means limit yourself to those. Many of the professional staff I worked with found that they wanted to teach a course as well as do their work with alumni or advancement. And that's great. And so some of the most interesting courses in our curriculum, I remember I attended one on governance in nonprofits. Little did I know that years later, here I would be at a nonprofit trying to understand governance at nonprofits. So go to the substantive academic sessions that interest you too. If you've never thought about teaching, now might be the time to see if you want to fit a course in, much as a member of the bar in your city or community might come in as an adjunct to do one course. So I'm delighted to include all of those folks in this meeting and that more are in attendance at this virtual meeting than we'd ever had. To the faculty, I would say, get to know your professional staff, and to the professional staff, and get to know your faculty on a first name basis. And this is a great time to do it. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Judy. And Vince, if I could ask you that question also.
Yes, it's a great question, and I would build on some of what Judy just said by adding, there's the advancement professionals, there are academic and student services professionals, there are lots of different groups with whom I think the faculty would I think faculty would benefit from engaging with each of those groups in various ways, even if you don't believe necessarily that you are going to be specifically involved with the work that they do. Understanding the work that they do and some of the issues that they face will really help you understand, the overall running of the law school, the challenges the law school faces, the needs of the students, the relationship between the law school and the alumni community. All of those things are important to understand. And I think increasingly today, in the environment in which we find ourselves, a more sophisticated understanding of the entire operation of the law school across all of its constituencies redounds to the benefit of everyone. So this is a time for you to, pick an area and learn more about it. So, and for those of you in those professional groups, we hope that this meeting is giving you, these meetings are giving you more and better opportunities to deepen your knowledge and to talk to colleagues across the country from other institutions. And that's the other point I guess I would make in terms of if you're not specifically interested in leadership yourself, there is just so much opportunity at these meetings for learning. So be it about areas of the law school that you're not actually involved in yourself, or simply just deepening your own personal knowledge about various topics, not only topics in which you do research or scholarship, but we have lots of other events during the meeting that are designed to just bring people together to talk about important topics, hot topics, other things like that. So, you have an opportunity here, just as a member of the Legal Academy, to dive in on subjects that are interesting to you and to meet people who share those interests. I think that's really another big benefit of the meeting. When you have little blocks of free time that you want to fill, these are great opportunities. These are great opportunities for you to use that time to just benefit from the time that we're all spending together.
Let me just intrude for a minute in the order, Jason. I noticed we're not yet getting questions on chat, and I want to encourage everyone who's in this session, please use the chat function. We can see it, and we'd love to be getting questions from you. So click on the bottom of your screen and use chat. I know you all know how to do it. Back to you, Jason.
You just beat me to it. I had just written a note on my paper saying, remind everyone about the chat. So great minds. Let me also, I'm going to insert one more thing for senior staff and administrators that just came to mind. I'm the chair of the Arc of Career Committee, and every year the committee gathers and we look at proposals for the following year's Arc of Career sessions. And if there is someone who wants to propose a session that relates to senior staff or administrators for the Arc of Career, I would encourage you to please submit that. Either reach out to me and I can talk to you about how we do that, or send me an email and I will give you the information about the call for proposals, because I think that would be something that we would encourage and look forward to. Erwin, please.
I just want to add something, though I'm sure it's obvious. Hopefully for all of you, for each of us, it's a long career, and there's the opportunity to be in different roles at different points in the career. So even if at this moment, being a section leader doesn't seem appealing or realistic, it's something to keep in mind for another time. Or even if being involved in certain types of roles might at this moment not be attractive, it's something to keep in mind for the future. It's one of the great things about being a law professor, is the chance to do so many different things over a period of time.
Thank you. And the other thing I would mention is that many of the committees have many of the sections have executive committees. So it's not necessarily that you're in a scene that you're in charge of everything all at once, but it gives you an opportunity, if you're on the executive committee, to participate in planning what the next session for that section is going to be, or getting involved with some people without having to jump right into that senior leadership role. Well, thank you all. In light of talking about opportunities, and I think one of the big opportunities that AALS presents is the opportunity, as everyone's mentioned, to meet people from other institutions, to meet colleagues that are at other schools, But I know that not everyone enjoys networking or feels like they are very good at networking. So for those who feel like they're not very good at networking, how would you suggest that someone go about finding a mentor outside their institution? And maybe I'll start with you on that question.
Well, first off, I want to say you're probably a lot better at networking than you think, I promise. I say this only half jokingly. You have to remember that you're dealing with a community of law professors. So how do I put this? We're all nerds together in this world, and we're all sort of a little bit maybe awkward. We're all maybe feeling like we're not that great at networking. We can all connect with each other. We all like talking about similar things. So just keep that in mind. You've got a really interesting community of people to work with, but also I think everyone is really happy to hear from each other, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I've really found it really nice to network with people through email or social media. For example, maybe I read something that I really like from them and I reach out to them and like say, hey, I really liked your paper. Would you want to ever talk about it with me or talk with my students or something about this paper? That's something that's really interesting with doing everything remotely now. You can even have people come and, dial in to chat with your students for class or something after reading something that you really like. So there are, I think, really interesting, more increased networking opportunities that are a bit easier, especially at schools that might not have the same sort of budgets to send people traveling and everything, that doing everything remotely actually presents. So, keep that in mind. You should also be able to use your own faculty at your school as a resource for networking. So, perhaps ask some of the senior faculty in your subject matter, who should I know? Who can you introduce me to? And they should also be able to help you out with that. So don't ever forget that your own faculty at your school should also be a resource who should be helping you out in trying to introduce you around and getting you connected with people. Affinity groups in the AALS I found to be really important as well. Women in legal education, minority groups have been incredibly helpful. And I feel like I've been able to find a lot of friends and a lot of really great colleagues in those groups in particular. So that's really not a resource that you should be overlooking. Another thing that I found really helpful, and I want to address this specifically to faculty of color out there, is the pre-tenure faculty of color workshop. This is an annual workshop. It lasts about a day of the conference. I do think that there is one. There is one this year too, and I feel like I connected with people who had some of the same sorts of concerns, some of the same sorts of experiences that I had coming into academia, that who are still my friends, who are still people that I trust, who are still people that I reach out to. So that session in particular was really instrumental in my networking and my feeling more comfortable in the academy. So I think what you see in AALS is some really interesting opportunities to sort of go and find your community out there within this larger community and go and find friends. And those affinity groups, sessions like the pre-tenure faculty of color, day and everything have been incredibly helpful. A really other sort of easy, cheesy way, for lack of a better way of putting it, to network, I found has been on social media, frankly. And I only started using Twitter maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I feel like I have found so many friends, so many colleagues, so many great people on, law professor Twitter. And you'll see throughout the next few days of the session, people hashtagging, AALS 2021 and everything. You can really find a lot of networking opportunities using things like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And, what was really refreshing at the last session in person was being able to walk around and having people being like, hey, I know you from Twitter, let's chat. We're finally going to meet in person. So that has actually been really especially valuable. So that might be something that you want to consider if you feel like, sometimes in-person networking is a little bit hard. Doing it online and then meeting people in person might be a bit more your jam or a bit more your speed. So keep those sorts of alternate ways of networking in mind. But really, I just want to end again by, really emphasizing the fact that you're probably a lot better at it than you think. And everyone is expecting and hoping that you get out there and introduce yourself. Like I said earlier, I literally started my first AALS walking up to people like, hey, I'm crashing your group. Hey, I'm crashing your party. I'm Maybell, how's it going? And that's great. I think people were really, really, welcoming and kind. And I think you'll find that no matter who you go up to, even just metaphorically in this online conference. So have some confidence, I guess, is what I'm saying. You're better at this than you think.
Thank you. Thank you, Maybell. Judy, would you like to add anything about people who may not be very good at networking, what they may be able to do to find a mentor outside of their institution?
I'll start by saying this is an opportunity. I don't want to over toot the horn for AALS. Just a minute, I've got to turn something off. I'll be right back.
Maybe while Judy's doing that, I can ask either Vince or Erwin if they want to chime in.
I mean, I would just say, I would echo a lot of what Maybell said. I think, not being good at networking is something we hear a lot of too from our students, right? And we're often trying to push them out there to let them know that they have to understand how to build relationships in order to build their professional careers. So in a way, I guess we have to practice what we preach, and try to find different settings in which we are comfortable. And I think Maybell suggested it to you. I mean, maybe you're more comfortable engaging people on social media. There are lots of opportunities to, do that through the conference and to build on that after. Maybe smaller settings are places where you can engage, and we talked about different ways you can do that in section meetings. Or maybe it's the larger events where you can go up to panelists after one-on-one to talk to them. There are just lots of different methods, but I guess we all need to think about the fact that, relationship building is critical in what we do. And, so if you're not comfortable with it, that's okay. But, this is a time to actually, think of how you might build those skills and become more comfortable with the best way for you to build relationships in the profession.
Thanks. And I'll turn back to Judy.
Absolutely. Nope, not quite yet. Sorry.
Erwin, did you want to add anything?
I'll add only one sentence. Most people who you reach out to will really welcome it. And so most law professors who you reach out to will really be delighted to talk with you. And it's something that's hard for me to recognize if I'm the one reaching out, but I do think what Maybell was saying in that way is very true.
Sorry for my technical problems, but let me just jump in and be one more voice. No senior faculty member is ever disappointed when they're approached by a younger colleague, particularly if it's a colleague who says, oh, I read your article or I'm using your casebook. So even if they don't turn into a terrific mentor, believe me, they will only be honored by your reaching out. So that may help people be a little bolder. I wanted to join with Erwin and say, I didn't know that when I was younger. And I too was shy about it and have that regret, because there are wonderful people in this profession. And we are stronger when we are united, especially at difficult times like this. So do reach out and connect and be less shy than some of your senior colleagues. They'll be grateful.
Thank you. Great. I did want to address one before we turn to our final question. There was one question in the chat that I wanted to address, or two questions, because it related to, I think, sections. And so we had talked about sections. And the question was, if you're a career service professional below a dean level, which AALS section should you join? And maybe I'll let Judy take that one first. I'm sorry, if you are a career service professional below a dean level, which AALS section should you join?
So there are several. If you go and look at the list of administrative sections, we have one on student services, for example. I've already talked about institutional advancement. So there are several possibilities in the list. There isn't only one. And you can also use the meeting. I mean, it's a good chance to go to some of those programs and see, are they talking about issues that are important to me in my professional work?
Right. And then maybe I'll address this question also before we turn to our last question, because I think it's a good question about how we communicate more broadly at AALS. And there was a question about, is there a message board or a method for communicating broadly? His school is producing a webinar for Black History Month. He wishes to invite other law schools to participate. So maybe we could speak, does the new law professor section have the listserv? I know each section has listservs, and some are more active than others. Maybe you would address that.
We definitely do have a listserv, and if you even want to go a bit broader than that, I would get in touch with Clarissa Ortiz at the AALS, and she has the ability to actually send out emails to all of the section chairs. So she can get that out, and then the section chairs can distribute out to their listservs as well. So Clarissa's been really great to work with on stuff like that. So just shoot her an email.
One thing I would add you can use, not everyone knows, but we keep a symposium list on the main homepage of the AALS, AALS.org. And we're always looking for additional submissions. And it's set up so that if your school is doing a particular program, it will be up there and people from around the country will know about it. And again, it's a silver lining during this pandemic. People might not have been able to travel when everything was in person, but now that it's all virtual, it really is a great time to see what some of the faculty and staff at other schools are doing. And there's great programming going on right now.
And I would highly encourage anyone, if they haven't been on the AALS website, it's a great website. And I know that the staff administrators have put in a lot of work on updating the website and the work that's in it. So please, I encourage you to visit if you haven't already done so. And Judy did not ask me to do that plug. So, all right, let me turn to the last question. So for my panelists, I'd like to ask you all, what has been the most impactful opportunity that AALS has provided to you? And I'll start with Vince.
Well, I think for me, the AALS really became a significant net add to my career when I became a dean, and the opportunities that I was able to engage as a dean in terms of relationship building, leadership development, the opportunity to share creative ideas across a wide range of schools, and I mean, who knew? But the kinds of things that occurred during the last decade, from the 2008, the impacts of 2008 on legal education in the years that followed, and now the pandemic. The AALS has just been a lifesaver in terms of giving me access to colleagues on a regular basis to talk through all kinds of different things, to build relationships that have been extraordinarily helpful on a national level, on a regional level, to problem solve, to think creatively, to share, as I said. So, and then, to develop my own leadership at my own school. In so many ways, in the last 10 years that I've been dean, the AALS has just been a critical part of giving me resources that have made me better at what I'm doing, have helped me and my colleagues at my school do a better job, with the challenges that we've faced. And as I said, I mean, the relationship building has been extraordinary. So those would be the highlights for me of being a part of the AALS.
Thank you, Vince. Erwin?
I think my answer is the same as Vince's. I would say it in one word, the people. As I think back to past AALS conferences, what I remember most is some of the discussions that I was part of, or even some of the meals that I was part of and the conversations that occurred there. Um, Pretty early in my career, I got to be part of a section leadership and made some friendships that have lasted my entire career. I was part of a planning group at AALS many years ago and met people who have stayed friends over the years. I agree very much with Vince. If there's any deans attending their first AALS meeting now, I have found the dean's listserv and the meetings for deans so invaluable to be able to learn from each other and the friendships. And I was incredibly fortunate to spend 3 years on the executive committee. And I think the best part of that was the camaraderie among the memberships, meeting people I didn't know and getting to know the AALS staff. So that's why I say in a word, for me, what's been best about AALS is the people.
Great. Thank you. Maybelle.
I have to chuckle a little bit answering this question because I feel like, what hasn't the AALS given me? And that's going to sound really cheesy and silly, but some of you may already be aware of the fact that at the last AALS in Washington, D.C., I fell in love with my husband, Brian, who is also a law professor. So I feel like I am indebted to the AALS and the annual meeting for that happening. So it's definitely the people, for lack of a better way of putting it. I know he's watching, so hi, sweetheart. So you never know what's going to happen, or the friendships you're going to make, or the more than friendships you might make at AALS. And that's really what has been so restorative about the annual meeting every time, just being able to catch up with friends, being able to bounce ideas off of them. I look forward to being able to do this, as great as this online meeting is, to be able to see everyone next year and just give them a big hug and be able to just sit down and chat with them, because it's really an opportunity to reconnect, an opportunity to check in with everyone. And I find AALS, at first, your first time around, it's really intimidating, of course, just like any other big first thing that you're going to go do. But then it's really energizing and it's a lot of fun. I promise you it's a lot of fun. So, enjoy yourself at this online event. Look forward to next year when we're going to be in person. But really, it's the people, it's the relationships, it's getting to build those relationships and see each other over, several years, many years. So really, I love the annual meeting. I think it's the best.
Thank you, Maybelle. And Judy.
Well, I've engaged with the AALS in very different ways. I've already told you the story of when I was a brand new law professor, and it seemed everybody knew their way around, but it gave me great guidance on picking the casebook I used when I first started teaching. And later, like Gerwin and Vince, when I became a dean. But now that I'm on the staff, I have to mention one group that hasn't been mentioned, and that's the staff at AALS. There's only 26 people, and there are thousands of law professors and professional staff. And we've never felt how small we are, more than we have this year in trying to do something that had never been undertaken before. So you really have an extraordinary staff of people who are dedicated to trying to assist you in your work, whether it's teaching or as an administrator, as a professional, as a student affairs professional. And never hesitate to reach out, because that's what these folks are about. That's what the mission is, to be of support to you. And for me, it's been a privilege to be closer to it and watch them flourish. So fingers crossed, we're now launched. This is the first session at the first virtual meeting.
Great. Thank you all. And from my perspective, I would also say that my first AALS meeting was in 2008 in San Diego, and like everyone has said, it can be overwhelming not knowing people. But I've had so many opportunities and made so many friendships in the time that I've been, that I would encourage everyone to take advantage, as I said before, of the opportunities here, but then also come back next year. Make sure you come to AALS next year and see what it's like to be in person. Hopefully we'll all be in person have that experience, and don't be overwhelmed by the size and the magnitude, because you'll find your niche. A couple questions that did come up that I'd like to share. And I'll address the first one to Judy. You had mentioned the sections, and someone asked about how they would go about signing up for sections, how they actually do that, how they actually would sign up for a section.
So if we were in person, we would have handed you a piece of paper, and we can't do that. But you can online go to the website, and you will easily get yourself to the section on sections, and there's a join a section form to fill out. You can't do it directly. We actually hand put you into the system, but it should happen within a day. And for this meeting, you don't have to be a member of any section to go to the program. So there's plenty of time. But the benefit, just to underscore, is that the sections more and more are doing their work beyond and outside of the annual meeting. Those discussion lists, the programming, the webinars that have been put on, it becomes its own essentially year-round meeting of people in your subject matter field. So I urge you to do it.
Great, thank you. And I just noticed also that Clarissa Ortiz put the link in the chat. So if you want to look at the link in the chat.
There's a direct link, great.
Yep. Very good. There was I'm trying to scroll through our questions, and they keep on moving on me because people are putting more things in. Someone put in a question, thank you very much for all the things you had suggested doing. Could you please maybe say something that we should not be doing? Is there anything we shouldn't do? I'll turn that question maybe over to start with baby Vince.
Gosh, what should you not do? Well, I guess in keeping with what we said before, don't sit on the sidelines. Engage. Don't be passive. I guess that's my. This is a once a year event, and a lot of great things come out of it that will carry you through the following year. I would encourage you to engage yourself in whatever way of the ways we've described, which works best for you.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Another question that has come up a couple times I've seen in the chat, are there opportunities, events, or for instructional track faculty, i.e. non-tenured track faculty, or faculty that are not legal writing or clinical faculty? Maybe I'll throw that to the panel, whoever wants to answer that, who take that question.
So new law professors has been incredibly open when it comes to trying to get people who are, non-tenure track faculty, folks who might be adjunct faculty involved in everything. So, come and join us in new law profs, come to our panels, come to, our business meetings in future, reach out to us. It's really a joy and a privilege for all of us on the board to get to interact with faculty in all different tracks. And we are happy to include everyone, legal writing, clinical, adjunct faculty. We are a very wide umbrella that way. So, we are happy to chat with you and to get you to participate a bit more. Don't feel shy about it, please.
Right. Are there any other questions from our attendees? Well, I want to thank our panelists for their time. Would any of our panelists have any closing remarks, anything they want to add before the session ends? Judy.
Well, I'll just say again, I want to thank everybody who came to the session, and feel free to use the chat and send me suggestions if there are things you would like to hear or have us do in next year's program. This depends very much on feedback from you to make it beneficial. What more can we do to fulfill your hope for what the program should have been? But we're glad you're here. We're glad you're at the meeting. And because of the size, the number of people, this could be the most well, it's the best attended meeting ever. And we hope the content will live up to all that potential.
I did see one more question just came in, which I think we can address. And the question was, what does it entail? What does it mean to join a section? And I guess maybe we talked about that a little bit, but we really didn't explain what it meant to be actually a member of a section.
Well, the main thing it means is that you get to be on the discussion list. So you don't have to do anything. I mean, if you want to be a free writer, you can, but you will see, and some sections are more active than others. Some sections, there'll be a post, maybe several posts every day. Other sections, maybe once every 3 months. So it depends on the section. But you will see people discussing a recent case, discussing how to teach a particularly challenging case, talking about events in the world around us. So needless to say, some sections have been very busy given what's going on and not going on in our democracy today, for example, and tomorrow, for example. I am glad that we're not in person tomorrow in the district. So the main thing is access to the members of the section in this discussion list, which includes everybody in the section. And then it's up to you. Sections also have, once you join, their own homepage. And a lot of them put up teaching materials. And there are lists of past programs, and you can go back and find out who spoke on various topics. So it's a good way to meet other people in your field.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists very much. Vince, Erwin, Maybell, and Judy, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoy this session. I think it's such a valuable service that AALS is doing now to have this panel for new attendees to get people involved and interested and to understand what AALS is all about. I did see on the chat that people were asking about names. If you need any of the names of the panelists, you can go back in the speakers on the website. And the speakers we're there with our bios and I think our emails. If you need to reach out or would like to reach out to any of us, you can find our information there. So I thank you all for attending today and enjoy your 2021 annual meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.